You may think you've been doing the right exercises to get your arm moving again after a stroke, but are you really, according to the evidence? By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what you need, why you need it, and I'll show you an exercise routine that will help you get it. Let's get into it. The secret to regaining arm movement after a stroke is that it's not actually about your arm. The foundation to arm mobility and shoulder mobility in particular is the shoulder blade or the scapula. You may have heard the term proximal stability for distal mobility if you were in rehab for any amount of time after your stroke. And this basically just means that unless you have scapular stability at your shoulder blade, you are not going to be able to rebuild the arm movement that you need. If you have weak scapular stabilizers, you shouldn't just be working on fine motor coordination. You need to be addressing the underlying problem. Studies show that many stroke survivors have impaired scapular movement patterns as well as stability issues. And specifically, this might cause weak muscles that leads to that decreased stabilization. Functionally, you might see the scapula winging, which is where that scapula sort of comes off of this thoracic rib cage. You may also see difficulty or loss of smooth rotation of the scapula. You can also see impingement issues where the acromion meets the humerus, and you can also develop a frozen shoulder as a result of this. All of these can contribute to increased pain, decreased movement, and thus a loss of functional ability, trouble with reaching or lifting up the arm, which impacts how you do everyday activities. This is especially important to consider because of something called the scapulohumeral rhythm or ratio. And there are a few different definitions of what that is, but the most widely accepted is the 2-to-1 ratio. And it describes how the arm moves when it's raised up. So to demonstrate this, let me give you a really concrete example. So if you were to raise your arm to about 90 degrees, the glenohumeral joint or the shoulder joint is doing about 60 degrees of that motion. And your scapulothoracic joint, where your scapula meets your thoracic rib cage, is doing about 30 degrees of that movement. So I don't want to get too in the weeds with this. The important thing to understand about scapulohumeral rhythm is that while your shoulder joint is responsible for the majority of the lifting of your arm, your scapulothoracic joint plays an integral role in you being able to lift and raise your arm. So when there's an issue with weakness or stability of the scapula, you are not going to get as much arm movement. With that understanding, let me show you some exercises to help address the problem. Exercise number 1 is scapular protraction and retraction. Protraction is where you're pushing your shoulders and shoulder blades forward. Retraction is where you're bringing them together like you're trying to squeeze them, trying to squeeze a penny between them. Now, there are several different modifications we can make to make this exercise easier or harder depending on where you're at. The easiest, most beginner-friendly is to use the table for support. You can clasp your hands together or leave them separated. You want to push your arms forward, pushing your shoulder blades forward as you go. You hold for 3 to 5 seconds at the end of range, and then pull back, squeezing those shoulder blades together, again holding for 3 to 5 seconds. The next level up, to make this a little harder, lift those arms off the table or taking the support away from the table. You then want to push your arms forward and pull them back. Push your arms forward and pull them back, feeling your scapula move at the same time. The last way to modify this for the most challenge is to add some type of weight or resistance. So this might be putting on a cuff weight or holding on to a bag of beans or rice. You can use your affected and unaffected hands together if you need to do that. But by adding that level of resistance, you're not only focusing on movement, you're focusing on strengthening as well. Exercise number 2 is scapular elevation and depression. This is where you're raising the shoulders and shoulder blade up and then pushing them down. Now, there are several different modifications we can make to make these exercises either easier or harder to meet you where you're at in your recovery. The easiest, most beginner-friendly way is to use the table for support, rest your arms on the table, and then bring your shoulders up and then push them down. You may even feel yourself pushing your elbows down into the table, and that's a-okay. You're holding for around 3 to 5 seconds at end of range for each movement in this exercise. Then you can progress this, modify it to make it a little more challenging. Remove the support from the table by taking your arms off. Have your hands in your lap if you want. Push your shoulders up, hold 3 to 5 seconds. Push your shoulders down, really trying to feel your scapula working as you're going through these movements. The last way to modify this and continue to make progressions is to, of course, add resistance or weight. The easiest way to do this, especially if you don't have a lot of hand return yet, hand movement return, is to wear a cuff weight. You can have your arms down by your sides, pull up the arm, hold for 3 to 5 seconds, and then push down, hold for 3 to 5 seconds. Exercise number 3 is the scapular clock. I know this one sounds a little silly, but it's very challenging and it's gonna give you a lot of bang for your buck. If you can't do all of the movements in this exercise, that's perfectly fine. Do what you can, start where you are. So you're gonna picture a clock around you with the 12 o'clock directly in front of you. This is gonna be a little weird because I'm mirrored, but just follow these movements and you're gonna be just fine. So we're going to go for the 12 o'clock position. You'll reach out with your affected arm, pushing that shoulder and shoulder blade forward and then bringing it back. You want to reach out to the side, whether this is the 3 or 9 o'clock position for you. Push out to the side and then bring your arm back in. You're going to go to the 6 o'clock position, trying to reach your arm back behind you, push, and then bring it back. And lastly, whether this is your 3 or 9 o'clock, you're gonna reach across you, push, and bring it back in. So keep in mind that after each reach, you're coming back to center, resetting, and then going to the next position. You don't have to hold with these. You can just keep going through the movements, coming back to center, and moving on to the next one. Now, there are several different modifications that you can make to make this exercise a little easier or a little more challenging. And the first is you can use your unaffected arm to help your affected reach out. Now, of course, this is gonna be challenging. You're probably not gonna be able to reach back behind you like this, but even if you can just help bring it across your body to the front and to the side, that's a great place to start. Of course, the way that I originally showed you, which is just moving that arm through your range of motion as best as you can, sort of the next step up. And then lastly, of course, adding weight is going to be the next progression to help you not only focus on movement, but also on strengthening. So now you understand the exercises you need to be doing to regain arm movement, but how many sets, how many repetitions, and how often should you be doing them for optimal results? If you're working on regaining movement, I recommend working your way up to 1 to 3 sets of 15 to 30 repetitions every single day. Now hear me, work your way up to. If you can only do 5 for each exercise, that's perfectly fine. Start where you are, do what you can. Just have that parameter set as a goal in mind of something that you're working towards. Now, if you're working on strengthening, if you've added resistance or weights of some kind, you want to stick with 1 to 3 sets of maybe around 8 to 15 repetitions. And you want to only do that around 2 to 3 days per week to allow your muscles a chance to recover. Leave me a comment and let me know what has been most helpful for you to regain arm movement after your stroke. And please support the channel however you can. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, become a channel member by clicking the join button, or leave us a super thanks by clicking in the YouTube bar below. Of course, a huge thank you to all of the donors who make this nonprofit possible, with a special thank you to Heather G, Ryan D, Modus Nova, and Joseph M in our Empower tier on Patreon. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you next time.